Hi guys, so today we're going to be having a look at getting DCS running in VR on a non-God tier computer. Now, if you're like me and you don't have one of those, it can be really frustrating trying to actually get it so it's smooth and it looks good. So we're going to go through a 3-tier approach, and it's worth noting as well, we're going to be using virtual desktop and a Meta Quest 3. This is just the way I've found that it works best for me. So yeah, sounds like something you'd be interested in. Stick around and let's work our way through the 3 different steps. So before we get started, it's worth making sure that your computer is fully up to date, your graphics card is fully up to date, and so is your Meta Quest 3 as well. Now, without them being fully up to date, it could cause some kind of weird glitches or compatibility. So definitely get the software and the firmware all fully updated, and that's going to make the process a lot smoother. Now, there's plenty of videos like this on YouTube, so just have a look around and you'll be able to find a guide for each one of those 3 steps. Okay, so first of all, we're going to open up virtual desktop on the computer. Now, if you have a look at the default options that appear on this first screen, I've pretty much left all of these exactly as they are, but you've just got to make sure that for the OpenXR runtime, you select VDXR. If you select Steam, that will kind of trip up the whole system, and yeah, basically it won't work. Now, if you click on the Advanced tab just below Options there, this is where the real magic happens that is going to give you a massive FPS boost. So the horizontal and vertical field of view tangent. Now, what this does is it limits what is actually rendered by the computer. Now, a lot of the image is actually, you don't actually see it because it's on the very edge of your peripheral vision. Now, by bringing in the field of view, it basically stops the system having to render frames that you can't actually see, or if you can see them, you don't really pay that much attention to them because it's it's what you're looking at directly in front of you. So I've found that for me, what works best is 75% for both the horizontal and the vertical. And this just cuts off a lot of things that aren't really important and gives you a massive FPS boost. Now, down at the bottom there, for the additional sharpening, I've been experimenting with this, but for myself, I've been leaving it at 50%. I find if I push it much higher, it kind of makes the whole picture a lot more grainy because there's extra layers of sharpening that we're going to add in later on. So 50% for this seems to work just fine for me. Okay, so here we are actually back in the Quest itself, and we're in virtual desktop. I'm just going to go through some of the settings in the settings tab first of all. So optimal resolution, very important. Environmental quality, just put that to low. It doesn't really affect the game itself, but anything to kind of stop any power or focus of the system being drawn to anything else is always good. Now the frame rate, definitely start at 72. It's much better to lock the FPS so it's solid at a lower rate than kind of jumping around, say at 120. Now the desktop bitrate, I've got that set to automatic, and so it's automatically bumping it straight up to 120 megabytes per second. Now the higher the bitrate, the smoother the whole kind of system is going to be. So on this side, nothing really too useful just there, so you can kind of leave that all the same. Now if we come over to the streaming tab, this is where the options that you select here are going to have a huge impact. So the VR graphics quality, pick the graphics card that is closest to the one that you've got. I've actually got a 4070, but I'm finding that the high setting seems to work a lot better. If I put it on ultra, I definitely get some drops and can all become a bit glitchy. So the VR frame rate, again, set to 72. The bit rate, because it's set to automatic on the desktop app, it will just pick the best one, and that will give you the smoothest experience. Then for the sharpening, got that right up to 100%. The SSW, got that set to automatic, so it just kind of kicks in and switches to half frame rate, just to kind of smooth everything out a little bit. Now the advanced options, Snapdragon, definitely got that on. That's making everything look a little bit sharper. And everything else, yeah, pretty standard. So track controllers, if you want to be able to use the hand controllers to actually press buttons in the cockpit, definitely make sure you've got that one selected. Right, so step 2 is where you're actually going to adjust the settings from within DCS itself. Now I'm doing it from the launcher, but you can do it actually from in-game, depends on which version you prefer. So for starters, I'd say go to the presets and just start on low. Now this is going to put pretty much everything down to its lowest setting. So down here we've got visibility range, low water, everything's down at its lowest, and just give it a go, just to see if it works for you. Now even though it is good putting the majority of the settings on low, the forest details factor and the scenery details factor, having both of these up to max can have a bit of a well, pretty massive impact on the frame rate, and also the FPS. Having it all the way up to 180 can really kind of inhibit the system from displaying useful frames, because if you're aiming for 72 and it's trying to render up to 180, that's a lot of power that is actually just being wasted, kind of generating frames that you don't need. So I've got a couple of presets. So my flat screen one, I have pretty much everything set on high and it works absolutely beautifully. But we're talking about VR here. So for my planes, I have custom 3 set. And we'll start on this corner, this top right first of all, because this is what has the biggest impact. So the cluster and grass I've put down to 240, so that way you get enough just in your vicinity that it kind of brings the world to life. Now the forest visibility and the forest details factor, got both of them set to 80%. Now I feel like this gives you enough depth, and you do still see the forest popping up every now and then, but it's a kind of good balance between having that depth and also the good frame rate. Now scenery details factor, now I've had this down really low for quite a while, and it looked fine, but I've been kind of increasing it a little bit by a little bit, and at just 0.5 I'm finding that is the kind of sweet spot at the moment. Now the preload radius, now this is really really important one. So I've got 33 gigs of RAM on my computer, so I've put it down to 33, and I feel like that just kind of sits in the sweet spot. You can increase it, but the benefits you're going to get from having it higher, I personally don't think it's worth the loss in frame rates that you're going to get. So chimney smoke density, I have that down to 0. I don't need to see any chimney smoking. I don't think that's worth the frame rate hit. And now this is one of the most, or two of the most important ones. So the LOD switch factor. Now this demonstrates how quickly an image loads fully. So if it's like a plane or a building or a tank or anything, if you have it at 0.4, I find this is the sweet spot. So just as you get close enough to actually make out the details is when it will actually load in the full resolution version of that item. Have it any higher, it will be loading it up when it's so far away you can't even see it. So 0.4, definitely the sweet spot just there. FPS, keep that at 75 because we're going to be aiming for 72 FPS. So keep it at 75, and that gives it a little bit of kind of play space just there. And the anti-stropic filtering. Now I keep this down to ×2. It just adds a little bit more clarity. You go any higher on a lower end computer, and it just kind of completely tanks the FPS. So something to be aware of. Now on the left hand side just here, for the general resolution, I've got that set pretty low because that's just the resolution that it's going to render on the computer screen, not actually in VR. So that can be kind of as low as you can take it just there, really. It doesn't really have too much of an impact. Then the cockpit display resolution, very important, this one. So you only have a few options, and it's definitely worth having it on the highest because you want that text to be nice and crisp within the cockpit, and you know, kind of screens and everything that's actually within the cockpit. So I have that on and render it at every frame just to kind of try and make it as crisp as possible. Now mirrors I have pretty low, just because I feel that the frames that the mirrors take up, you know, the lower the better for that one. Now anti-aliasing, I have it on DLAA and I have it the upscaling on DLSS. Now this can have a bit of a performance hit, but I feel that for the quality that you get out of this, it's definitely worth doing, and I always have it set to quality. But if you are struggling, you can put it down to performance or ultra performance, and that will definitely improve the well, the performance just there for you. So sharpening, leave at 0.5. Now textures, I've got to have this on high because that is how you're going to see the interior of the cockpit, and that's what we're kind of really going for, is cockpit clarity. So terrain textures, got them on low. You know, unless you're in a helicopter, you're pretty far away from everything, so you know, you kind of don't really notice too much of a difference. And the rest of them, I've kind of got most things on low or off, apart from clouds, which I think just have to be on high, because if they're, you know, clouds are obviously a big part of the whole experience when you're flying through them or looking at them in the distance. So I definitely keep them on high, even though it can be a bit of a frame hit. It's definitely worth it just there. And then everything else just here, I've pretty much gone on off or low. Now for the VR options, definitely want to enable the virtual reality headset, very important. Pixel density, you can raise this, but for me I found that it has such a tank on the FPS that it's just not worth it, so I'm just leaving it on 1.0 just there. And yeah, and again, use hand controllers selected so you can press all of the different buttons in the cockpit. So that's the general setup for DCS itself, and let's jump in and into the final step, and this is the real secret sauce that's only recently become available. So now the final piece of the puzzle is going to be to use the Quest Games optimizer to actually bump up the frames and just add in an extra layer of upscaling. So once you've got it installed, if you come over to the menu tab and then go to unknown sources, then you've got the QGO just there. Now you won't find it in the normal menu. I'm not entirely sure why, but this is where it can be found. So you click on that, and then in the optimization tab, you can turn that on, and then if you scroll down, there's a few different options. The image sharpening algorithm. Now the Fidelity FX CAS. Now this is the one I've been using. I find that it really adds an extra level of polish and clarity onto the game itself. There is a few different versions though, so you can, you know, kind of try out some of these different ones. But for me, definitely the standard compatibility option up at the top just there really adds an extra layer of polish on. Now this is quite a new function, only came out a couple of weeks ago to a new update to the QGO. As you can see, we're on version 14.01, and yeah, it's definitely a bit of a game changer, so worth giving that a go as well. So that wraps up my guide on how to get DCS working in VR on non-God tier computers. Now everything was recorded in the Quest 3 headset, and the black lines that you're seeing on the peripheral vision, they do not show when you're actually in VR, or they're so far, you know, on the edge of your view that you don't notice them. And also the actual image quality is a bit more high resolution than what we've got in the video just here. That's just to do with the way that the Quest even was recording the video. But yeah, any extra tips or anything that anybody's got, please drop them in the comments section below. And I really hope this video enables more people to actually get into DCS in VR, because it is a truly mind-blowing experience. But yeah, much love, Bounce 988 out, and I'll see you guys on the next one.